r/ask Reddit. What's a non-obvious sign that somebody is wealthy? Back in my college days we had a friend who came from a pretty wealthy family, but you couldn't tell because he lived in the dorms like everyone else. Except anytime someone suggested we go to a restaurant or to a game or show, he never asked about how much it cost or said he'd have to check his bank account like other people would say. Then one day he casually mentioned his father was going to bring him back to campus in their helicopter. A professor friend of mine asked a student if she needed an extension because she had to make an emergency trip home to Europe. She replied that it wasn't an emergency, her parents just wanted to see her, and that it wasn't that inconvenient. They sent the family jet to pick her up from her pretty rural school. The most unbelievable part about this is the student not taking the extension. Quite a few people who grow up with wealth conceal it. If they don't want you to know, you won't. During college I was dating a man for the better part of a year before finding out that his parents' residence was an entire floor of a fashionable Upper East Side Manhattan building. Their summer house was in Paris. One of his worries in life was about attracting parasites, so he had anticipated anything that could give away how much money was in his background. Occasionally it was useful to tip that hand. His mother had worn her mink coat when she co-signed his apartment lease. He spent modestly on dates and wore ordinary clothes. He had put a lot of thought into looking like a middle-class guy. I knew paying bills wasn't a problem for him, but he was kind of embarrassed when he revealed what his situation actually was. Didn't realize how wealthy some casual acquaintances were until we were at a nicer bar at a resort, and as soon as the staff saw their credit card they started getting really good service. It was a nice place and they were great to everyone, but suddenly this couple were like the only ones on the room. So apparently the color of your credit card, which I don't think is always a giveaway, but people in some industries just probably know rich person credit cards. I have a Sallie Mae student loan cashback card and that didn't get me anything. Many super high-end cards are heavy. I'm talking it's made of metal kind of heavy. It's pretty obvious. If you live in Silicon Valley, you won't be able to spot the poor from the rich. You can have a millionaire walk next to you in Target pants and drive a Honda. They don't flaunt it, don't talk about money, and never complain about money problems. Money talks, wealth whispers. They rarely or never talk about money in everyday conversations. There's a saying that there's an inverse correlation between how wealthy someone is and how often they mention money. But it's not that easy or obvious to gauge how often someone actually talks about money without interacting with them a lot. From what I've learned, if they dress like the Monopoly man and wear a monocle, they're rich. Everyone else is in jail. From what I've learned, if they dress like the Monopoly man and wear a monocle, they're pretending to be rich. The actual rich folk wear subtle high quality clothing or look homeless. Their kids have no pressure to get regular, middle class jobs. Some families I know have 3-4 kids and are very proud. This one is an artist, that one is 40 and getting a PhD, the other acts and directs local theater. It's a subtle status symbol to support your kid in whatever. I have a minor panic attack. How does that pay the bills? But it doesn't have to. I don't see a lot of designer purses or granite countertops, but a lot of art, and every piece, there's an accompanying story about being in that country, or knowing that artist stayed in their house, etc. They don't take pictures with cash in their hands and put it on Instagram. You're on the gram holding money to your ear, there's a disconnect. We don't call that money over here, Hoff. Had a roommate in first year who rarely lived in the dorm but had food delivered daily that tasted like it was picked out and cooked the same morning. Well, we invite him to St. Paddy's Day and I notice his watch, to which I drop a "That's really cool." Mind, I see it. Half drunk, I saw the watch face and asked him about the symbol. Mind you, this watch was really heavy as I am holding it and he says it's the family sigil. I was holding a 23k gold watch and he turned out to be part of the Qatari royal family. A dude could easily stunt on any one of us. So I guess it's the small things in their lifestyle and how modestly someone can wear $100,000 on their wrist. I went to university with 2 girls from Qatar. They seemed all normal like the rest of us until we found out that they each had a maid escorting them abroad for the duration of their studies. They don't know when payday is. They never mention money or their status. True story. My friend went to college and befriended a girl. After 2 years they took a class together, made a presentation, Saw the girl's full name. In our culture your full name is your name, father's name, family name, and was shocked to realize her father was the next in line ruler of the country. She used her name, father's name, throughout college so people wouldn't know who she really was. Their time is more valuable than their money, so if you see they are more concerned about how long something will take, rather than how expensive, that's a tip-off. Not rich, but I learned in life that you can always get money one way or another, but you will never get your time back, so spend both wisely. If you see an older white guy who wears a North Face vest over up a long sleeve button-up shirt, that dude is gonna be loaded. According to this thread, I am really rich and poor. Amazing. Potentially the wristwatch. Of course there's gold Rolexes and the like, but brands like Patek Philippe make pieces that cost as much as a house that you wouldn't look twice at. It's funny, poor people are insecure and show off what they have. The uber rich folks I know don't give a duck and dress like they're homeless. I work at a luxury car dealership, so I see my fair share of wealthy people. The one thing that stands out between them and regular people is how carefree and nice they are. I crashed a lady's car once, pretty badly, and all she did was laugh and say, "The important thing is that you're not hurt." I was astonished, since I'm used to my mom being so frantic and, frankly, abusive to employees if even the slightest thing is wrong. They don't necessarily get bent out of shape and treat the help poorly, but they also are very clear about what they want and will go elsewhere if you don't give it to them. I worked in a luxury dealership for a few years, and the thing I noticed more than anything was how willing they were to walk away over very silly things. I can't get the saddle interior with the carbon accents without special ordering. I wanted this car for my ski trip next weekend. Guess I'll get something else. For women, I say their hair tells a lot about how much money they have. Rich women with thin hair get extensions. Their hair is dyed by someone who picks out the most flattering tone and shade for them. They get treatments and blowouts regularly. Whenever I run into a celebrity at the grocery store or wherever in LA, the first thing I always notice is their hair. It's always nice, and noticeably more coiffed or cut or dyed more fashionably than others around, even if it's unkempt. Also their shoes. I saw the actress from the first True Detective, Alexandra Daddario, at Trader Joe's last week, and those were the first things I noticed. Dressing down. May I add, dressing down while entering any space that would normally be expected to dress more dressed up with complete confidence. In my own experience, I find that of course, not all true to everyone. The ones who feel the need to flaunt wealth by dressing up a certain way are usually the people who are the poorest, lol. Then the ones who walk with confidence to a bank or an expensive car dealership dressed down are usually the mega filthy rich dudes. They pay their parking tickets as soon as they get them. There are a few corner cases where breaking the law and paying the fine is more convenient and cheaper than doing things properly. Parking in Tokyo used to have this issue. It was cheaper to just keep paying fines than rent a legitimate parking space. My company's van drivers are even allowed to claim parking tickets back on expenses, up to a certain value each year. It's because a lot of local councils won't exempt them, even though it's a utility company, and sometimes they have no option but to park illegally to do their job. How they tip. Not to say that rich people inherently tip more or whatever, but I have some friends that will go through and figure out what 15% of a bill is, and others that will just do 20% outright because the math is easier and it's not worth it to them to do the rest. For what it's worth, I also have met rich folks who are super penny pinchers and will do the math every time. Not a surefire tell, but the manner in which someone tips can be a data point. My ex-friend's dad is a multi-millionaire. He took us out to lunch once and did the math to tip less than 15%. The whole family was horrendous at tipping. His brother visited a restaurant I worked at, and our mutual friend served him and his large party. She made $10 on a party of 12 people. It was so sad and awful. Their shoes. Even when they try to dress down to fit in, they still always wear a solid pair of shoes. I used to sell new cars in a sparsely populated area. One time an old geezer comes in overalls and grubby looking. All the other salesmen scattered because nobody wanted him. I was the slowest to see him, so I got stuck with him. He turned out to be what we called in the business a laydown. Told me which truck he wanted, Paid sticker price. In cash. Easiest sale I ever made. And taught me a great life lesson too. Excellent skin that looks really soft and has an even appearance no matter their age or lifestyle. Rich people go to the dermatologist. I saw a guy my age who had a really nice watch on, wearing basic jeans, a nice t-shirt, and a leather jacket. Other than the jacket, he looked like a middle-class 20-something-year-old. The watch didn't look super fancy, but you could tell it was a price of variety. I figured around a few hundred or so. I figured that it was maybe a gift from his family. He was cute and I wondered what brand the watch was, so I looked it up. Turns out it was a $30,000 watch. He had my student loan debt on his wrist. Something on their face. Even if I switch clothes with my rich friend, you can easily tell that he is the rich one. Maybe it's the diet or lifestyle. I don't know. I have a childhood best friend who's very wealthy, as in, he has a trust fund and will never need to work. It wasn't until I was an adult that I knew myself. That's how discreet he and his family are. He decided to join the army for the adventure, and did 2 tours in Afghanistan as infantry. He was a leader, hard worker, and in a couple of instances even a little brave. His friends in his unit, excuse my not knowing military lingo, didn't have a clue what his background was. Anyways, over the time they were there, they'd discuss their plans for when they got back to civilian life, and my friend would consistently tell them he had no plan whatsoever. His plan was to do nothing. They'd question it and he'd insist, nothing. Finally some of them are getting out shortly, and after about half a decade of knowing him, they really pressed him on what he was really going to do when he got out. What would he do for money? What jobs would he apply for? He finally told them he wasn't kidding about doing nothing. He's rich. He was just going to go back to being rich. Sometimes it's right in front of your face. My grandfather had a fishing boat at a marina. He commented that the guys that wore the nicest clothes and a captain's hat usually had the crappiest boats. He was right. You really can't tell if someone is wealthy in many cases. That's because they don't want you to know. It's an insecure person that flaunts wealth. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.